I went by your house, what a big mistake. But for a while I thought that I wouldn't break. I need something else to clear my head. Someone to tell me how to live instead. Just open your eyes and take my advice. Stop rolling the dice and just compromise. It's the chance of your life. Okay, try to be brave. You have so much to save. Take control of your own life. Right now, every mistake makes you feel like a fake. Take control of your own life. Without any thought, I keep moving on.
Welcome to Cyber Threat Intel, your go-to source for the latest updates, news, and insights on cyber threats. Our goal is to arm you with the knowledge to protect yourself in the digital age, whether you're a cybersecurity professional or just curious about the threats lurking in the digital shadows. Make sure to subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast listening platform to join us on the front lines of cybersecurity, because in the world of cyber threats, knowledge is power. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Cyber Threat Intel. I'm your host, John Good. It is March 21st, 2024. This is episode 4 of this new show. So we'll give people a few minutes, just like always, to start rolling in and kind of hang out until then. So before we get started, make sure that you grab a snack, grab a drink, whatever is going to help you get through this. And of course, if you're watching the replay, you can go ahead and skip through, because that's how replays work. So how's everybody doing tonight or this morning? I know I have a lot of people typically when I've been doing these that are saying good morning. So morning for a lot of people, as well as evening if you're in the United States, which is where I'm at. So good way to wrap up the workday or start off the workday, depending on where you kind of fall in the time zone there. So with that being said, if you're interested in finding the show, maybe you're listening on podcasting platform, maybe you're watching on YouTube, all of the platforms that we're on, we are on YouTube. We're on the John Good Cyber YouTube channel. So if you go there, you'll be able to watch the live streams, any pre-recorded videos or anything like that associated with the show, as well as some other content on there too. So you can find us on there. Make sure to subscribe and do all the things there if you want to watch the video format. If you want to listen on the audio podcasting format, we are available on all the major podcasting platforms. So the Spotify, the iTunes, there's a whole bunch of them, right? All you have to do is go to your favorite platform and search for us, and you'll be able to find the audio version there. As soon as the show is over, I go ahead and upload the audio. So it's almost instantaneously, not quite, right? There's a few steps that I have to do as far as extracting the audio, but you can listen to it there as well. Also, if you go to cyberthreatintel.com, that's cyberthreatintel.com, you can find all the different audio podcasting platforms that we're on, as well as the link to the video or the live stream on YouTube, so you can watch it on there as well. Also, there is the feed, the article feed on there on cyberthreatintel.com, where you can follow all of the different articles that we cover in the show, as well as other articles that are added that are important. They're good reads, but they are maybe not necessarily what we cover in the actual show. So very, very useful there. We also sometimes will put like highlights or comments in the articles, things like that, where you can read along and kind of get some more insight on those as well. Right. So it looks like a little slow day today with people joining and people in the chat and stuff. So we're not gonna wait too long, but in a minute we'll kick it off here. But let's take a second and let's go ahead and talk about the sponsors that we have. Are you tired of overpaying for cybersecurity training? Are you interested in training from industry professionals? Are you looking for cybersecurity career services? If you answered yes to any of those questions, then cybertrainingpro.com is the perfect platform for you. At Cybertraining Pro, we're a one-stop shop for all your cybersecurity needs. We can train you for industry certifications or just improve your overall knowledge and skills in a certain area. Unlike other platforms, we don't stop there. We can also coach you throughout your career, practice your interview skills, or create a high-performing resume with our career services. Cybertrainingpro.com isn't just another training platform. Students get exclusive access to our private community where we go beyond training courses to provide additional content, tips and tricks, and engagement with both other students and staff. Look, by the year 2025, there could be as many as 3.5 million job openings in cybersecurity. With so much opportunity, why not maximize your career potential with a platform that cares about your success? Come join us at cybertrainingpro.com and start building your future today. All right, make sure you check out Cybertraining Pro. That's cybertrainingpro.com. That's where I put all my courses, career coaching. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that will help you in your cybersecurity journey, whether you're just trying to start out in cybersecurity or you're already in the career field and you're just looking to advance your career, kind of accelerate that path. Lots of good resources on there for you to use. If you are stumbling upon the show and you're a company, you're somebody that offers services, something like that, and you want to sponsor content, make sure to check out the description in the video or on the podcast. And there's a link with more information there, how you can connect with us about sponsoring content and making some of this possible. So we appreciate our sponsors and everybody that makes this possible. We appreciate all of our community, all of our viewers. And yeah, there's a lot of things that go into this community and support that go into this community. So couldn't be more appreciative of that. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the articles for today. All right. So first article here, Five Eyes agencies issue new alert on Chinese APT Volt Typhoon. Government agencies in the US, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand are warning critical infrastructure entities of the threat posed by Volt Typhoon, a Chinese state-sponsored group that hacked thousands of organizations worldwide. Following a February CISA advisory, and that's a department here in the United States, on Volt Typhoon, pre-positioning itself in critical infrastructure organizations networks for disruption or destruction purposes, the Five Eyes agencies are now providing guidance on how critical infrastructure entities can defend against the threat. To defend against the risks associated with Volt Typhoon, leaders of critical infrastructure entities should empower cybersecurity teams. That's the key, right? You're going to empower your cybersecurity teams to make informed resourcing decisions, including by using intelligence-informed prioritization tools, the agency said. They should also empower cybersecurity teams to effectively apply detection and hardening best practices, receive continuous cybersecurity training and skill development, and develop comprehensive information security plans. So if you're not aware of critical infrastructure and kind of what that is, that's things like sanitization, that's things like power, those kinds of things which are critical to our ability to operate as a country, as a nation. And this goes for any country, right? Like those are critical pieces of infrastructure is how they are deemed. And typically there's a lot more scrutiny on those kinds of infrastructures because we need them, right? We've talked in the last couple episodes about things like making sure that government services are available. So 911, healthcare, hospitals, things like that, fire departments, because those are just really important as far as our way of life and our ability to survive. If power goes out for long periods of time, and we've seen this in history, when it goes out for a long period of time, that starts to cause a lot of issues because think about this. Things like grocery stores, they can't keep their food properly contained or properly stored. People don't have power to, cook meals and do all these things, right? We're kind of set back very far as what we're able to do. And a lot of those technological advances that have come along and made life a lot easier, a lot more sustainable in a lot of these different aspects, right? Sanitization, go way back when there was no sanitization services and people were just, throwing things out the window onto the street, right? Really bad picture to visualize, but that's the thing, right? Like when these services go down, police can't run warrants. That was a thing we talked about yesterday in the episode. They can't run people as far as figuring out if they're wanted and, do all those kinds of things, right? So really, really important. We've talked about satellites a while ago on this channel, and that being really important, being able to intercept different signals and things like that. So really, really critical. And especially this part about making sure that your teams are supported, that they have the training budgets or the training opportunities that they need to stay well versed in cybersecurity. That doesn't just apply to critical infrastructure companies or entities. That is across the board for all companies, right? If you want to stay secure, you want to be preventing attacks from happening, prevent hacks from happening, you got to put a little money into it, right? You can't just assume that, by paying these professionals that they're going to go off and do that stuff. I see that all the time, right? Like people very much want training budgets. They want training opportunities. And to a certain extent, you should be providing those as an employer so your employees can progress in their career, right? Smaller organizations that do not have a cybersecurity team, which is pretty common, right? If you're small enough, you probably don't have dedicated resources, should obtain managed security services, the Five Eyes agency says, right? Get an MSSP, they're called, Managed Security Service Provider. Organizations are also advised to secure their supply chain by establishing strong vendor risk management processes, ensuring due diligence is exercised for procurement, ensuring vendors enable interpolarity as a best practice, and identifying and limiting the use of products that break the principle of least privilege. So I've talked about that before on this channel. I actually have a video talking about risk management on here and vendor risk management, and I highly recommend checking that video out. But supply chain security has become more and more of a hot topic in the last, really several years, because we've started to see hacks like SolarWinds and some of this other stuff where it's just an important thing to do, right? It impacts your entire organization. If you are outsourcing products and you're bringing software in, you're using software within your organization, your critical environments, that makes a difference, right? It's important that you do your due diligence in general, right? Not just in the security program, but with vendor risk. And these are kind of all core things that we have to consider, right? All right, moving along here. Next article, Flipper Zero makers respond to Canada's harmful ban proposal. The makers of Flipper Zero have responded to the Canadian government's plan to ban the device in the country, arguing that it is wrongfully accused of facilitating car thefts. Are you aware of what the Flipper Zero is? So this device right here that I have on the screen, this is called a Flipper Zero, and basically it is used to emanate certain signals, certain RFID signals, things like that. Think like a garage door opener or a car remote where you're unlocking a device, RFID, proximity cards, things like that, where it can capture that signal. In early February 2024, the Canadian Industry Minister, Francois Philippe Champagne, sorry, I had to think in French, announced a proposal to ban imports of consumer hacking devices like flippers, as criminals reportedly use those to steal cars. The authorities also presented statistics that showed a rise in car thefts, reaching 90,000 annually, which Canadian lawmakers believe is linked to the availability of Flipper Zero and similar hacking tools. I don't know if you know, but Flipper Zeros were very, very difficult to get for the longest time, right? People were trying to go on the black market. People were getting scammed about them, like all kinds of things, right? Probably saw YouTube videos popping up with the Flipper Zero and showing proof of concept, how it could be used, things like that. And it just kind of describes it here. Flipper Zero is a portable and programmable pen testing tool that allows users to experiment with and debug various hardware and digital devices using multiple protocols, including RFID, radio, NFC, infrared, and Bluetooth. Much of Flipper Zero's functionality can be reproduced using other devices, including computers, Android phones, and Raspberry Pis, which are not being targeted by any countrywide ban. So they are specifically going after Flipper Zero, most likely because of the ease of use, right? If it's easier to go after because it's easier to kind of use as a scapegoat. And I think that's probably what's going on here, right? It's just how it is, right? Flipper Devices, the maker of the portable pen testing tool, argues that these accusations are ill-formed and Flipper Zero is incapable of stealing cars using keyless entry systems. Maybe, right? Now, this does start talking about that you can go out and buy a lot of similar kinds of devices. You can see this device is significantly more expensive. This keyless repeater DexP new update 2023, 13,800 euros. And that's kind of the defense here is, well, somebody could just go out and buy these. It's kind of like when we're talking about drones and how inexpensive drones have become, and people can just start putting pen testing tools or hacking tools, Raspberry Pis, things like that on a drone and just fly it up to a window, right? Same kind of thing. Scroll down here. Now there's a quote. It says, the Flipper Zero is built with hardware components used in thousands of devices, ranging from radio toys to educational DIY kits, so do it yourself. For example, the CC1101 radio transceiver inside the Flipper Zero has been widely used since its release in 2007. The problem is not in the available radio hardware, but rather in the insecurity of outdated access control systems, Flipper Devices says. So, yeah, I mean, specifically with cars, I've talked about cars before on the YouTube channel and just how little security goes into vehicles, right? And especially the more connected to computers they become, it seems like the focus on security and the effort put into securing those computers is maybe lackadaisical in some situations, not as methodical or focused as it should be, especially as they start connecting back to other computer systems. For instance, if manufacturer has a computer system where all of these cars or systems connect back to, and you can infiltrate that system, well, then maybe you can impact all these different cars. We've seen all kinds of different things about cars. We've seen, proof of concepts as far as being able to break cars or get into cars, affect the volume of cars, right? Like there's all this talk around as these car computers become connected, what can we do? We even see things like at the major hacker conferences, there are actually workshops or villages where you can go try to hack a car, right? So this is not new, and really going after a piece of equipment like this is really not gonna stop the issue. But I guess, to do some of the other stuff, there is a technological barrier. There's a certain technical acumen that you have to have. This is one little tiny device that you can just go click, 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 done, right? So it's a lot simpler to use. Next article here, Google Firebase may have exposed 125 million records from misconfigurations. More than 900 misconfigured Google Firebase websites could have leaked nearly 125 million user records, according to a recent post by a trio of security researchers who go by the online handles Mr. Bruh, Exivia, and LogYK. So, no! Not good, right? That's a lot of records. The Retail and Hospitality ISAC reported on the incident January 11th, the day after the first post by Mr. Bruh, saying that the attackers can use Chatter.ai's registration feature to create new user profiles with full read-write privileges by abusing a vulnerability or a misconfiguration in their Google Firebase backend database. After the initial press around the pawning of Chatter.ai, the trio of researchers set to work on scanning the internet for exposed PII via misconfigured Firebase instances, and that's when they found the leaked records, including important bank details, billing information, and invoices. The leaked data also includes names, phone numbers, email addresses, and passwords. Goes on to say most successful attacks on cloud infrastructure these days stem from misconfigurations, which is pretty true, said Patrick Tiquette, Vice President, Security and Architecture at Keeper Security, right? We see misconfigurations being the source of vulnerabilities or source of issues or breaches all the time. Google Firebase continuously upgrades and evolves its security recommendations, Tiquette said. However, these components are not always implemented properly or monitored as is the case with Chatter's implementation of Firebase. So think about that, right? As new services come out, you start using them, they start evolving. Think about like AWS, right? With AWS, there's so much documentation. There is so much potential for things to go wrong, right? If you misconfigure things, if you don't read something right, if it's a brand new service and the documentation isn't aligned with the actual GUI, well, that can certainly be a cause for concern, right? Obviously, documentation is better than no documentation, but as far as companies are concerned, you have to make the GUI easy to understand, easy to follow along. You have to have documentation that supports that. You have to create a link between the documentation and the actual GUI so people know where to go or they know which documentation to use. They are trained up on this stuff, right? There is training available to help them. And basically, you have to make it so you're not overwhelming people that are going to use this, right? The more complicated that you make things and the more overwhelming that you make it, even for technical people, the less likely they are to follow it, right? Especially a lot of technical people tend to think that they know the answer, right? Or that they can figure it out. In a lot of cases we can, right? Because we know how things work, we can figure it out really, right? We can test things and do all these kinds of things. But that's dangerous, right? So you have to think about it in that context and make it so that you're really helping and protecting the customers or protecting the people, the users of your product or service. And you're kind of eliminating that user error margin, right? All right, moving along here. And right after the stream, after the show, I will stick around for a few minutes too. So if you have questions or anything like that, we can definitely dive into those. But we're going to keep going through these articles here and finish up the episode here. So GitHub's latest AI tool can automatically fix code vulnerabilities. It's a bad day for bugs. Earlier today, Sentry announced its AI autofix feature for debugging production code. And now a few hours later, GitHub is launching the first beta of its code scanning autofix feature for finding and fixing security vulnerabilities during the coding process. This new feature combines the real-time capabilities of GitHub's Copilot with CodeQL, the company's semantic code analysis engine. The company first previewed the capability last November. So, code scanning tools, identifying vulnerabilities, that in that sense is not a new thing, right? We've had code scanning and those kinds of vulnerability scanning or detection systems, services, applications. We've had that stuff for a while, but we do see a lot of routine and common things that a lot of times can be fixed, right? Whether automatically or, very low effort. And the more that we start to see things get automated, the larger these code bases are, especially with like GitHub, right? They see so much code that they should have, in a sense, a really smart AI, right? They can help identify some of these common things because it's about sample size, right? They have so many samples to see or to analyze, whatever they're able to analyze, those kinds of things that, they would have a great shot, if anybody would, to actually hopefully auto fix some of this stuff. And the more that it can do it, the better that it can do it, the more accurately it can do it, the better off that we all are, right? But then we start relying on that. So that's dangerous too. GitHub promises that this new system can remediate more than 2/3 of the vulnerabilities it finds, often without the developers having to edit any code themselves. The company also promises that code scanning autofix will cover more than 90% of alert types, 90%, in the languages it supports, which are currently JavaScript, TypeScript, Java, and Python. Let's go ahead and give it up to GitHub. That's amazing. I am very optimistic about that. I hope that it continues to evolve and work out, right? This new feature is now available for all GitHub Advanced Security, GHAS customers. There's a quote here. It says, just as GitHub Copilot relieves developers of tedious and repetitive tasks, code scanning autofix will help development teams reclaim time formerly spent on remediation. GitHub writes in today's announcement, security teams will also benefit from a reduced volume of everyday vulnerabilities so they can focus on strategies to protect the business while keeping up with an accelerated pace of development. So if you haven't worked in a development shop or a developer heavy environment, in today's world, there is this huge shift of trying to automate things, trying to deploy things via code, and really accelerate that process instead of this traditional waterfall workflow where it's like, okay, we're going to get requirements, we're going to develop everything, and we're going to push it out. Then we're going to go back to the beginning, we're going to get more requirements, we're going to develop, we're going to test it, we're going to push it out, right? That's the slow model. The agile model is definitely a lot faster. There's a lot more rapid deployments, CI/CD pipelines, those kinds of things. If you're not familiar with those, definitely go check it out. Research into that, learn that. That's going to be valuable, especially going into the future, or if you want to work at these developer heavy shops, right? But being able to remediate things very quickly is part of that process, right? How can we do that? DevSecOps, DevOps, those kinds of things, right? So this is a good step in the right direction. In the background, the new feature uses the code QL engine, GitHub's semantic analysis engine to find vulnerabilities in code even before it has been executed. So again, just the ability to find, especially a lot of these low-hanging fruit vulnerabilities is a very important thing that will make life better. In tech, we are always trying to automate or relieve ourselves of having to do these very routine and just tedious tasks, right? That's just how we are, right? We don't want to keep doing the unnecessary things. Typically, technology teams run leaner overall than they could because you're using tech. Your goal is to automate things, to make things efficient, to make what you're doing very effective, to implement better processes, right? Like that's the goal. So that's a good thing for sure. Let's see here. Next article, moving on here. New Loop DOS attack or Loop DOS attack, whichever one you want to call it, impacts hundreds of thousands of systems. A novel denial of service or DOS attack vector has been found to target application layer protocols based on user datagram protocol UDP, putting hundreds of thousands of hosts likely at risk. Called Loop DOS attacks, the approach pairs servers of these protocols in such a way that they communicate with each other indefinitely, researchers from the CISPA Helmholtz Center for Information Security said. So if you don't know, UDP, TCP, those are kind of the main traffic sources. UDP is connectionless, so there's none of this three-way handshake kind of thing, so it doesn't validate a lot of things. It doesn't look for error correcting. Like there's all kinds of differences between the two, so we're not going to go into that. But that is something that you should know in your career if you don't already know it. So go research it if you haven't looked it up. When attackers forge several UDP packets to include a victim IP address, the destination server responds to the victim as opposed to the threat actor, creating a reflected denial of service or DOS attack. So they're trying to attack one server. It is going to communicating back to the victim. That's basically a reflected attack, right? It kind of reflects off one server and goes to another. The latest study found that certain implementations of the UDP protocol, such as DNS, NTP, TFTP, active users, daytime echo, charge-in, QOTD, and time can be weaponized to create a self-perpetuating attack loop. So pretty dangerous. Reflected attacks are just dangerous in general because, the attacker is using an intermediate source to reflect that attack to a victim. So they could use any intermediate source that is vulnerable or that can carry out that mission. And that makes it extremely difficult to defend, right? Because you can't blacklist that IP because they're just going to find another IP address, right? So it's a challenge for sure. All right, moving on here. Next article, U.S. task force aims to plug security leaks in the water sector. The Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, announced it is seeking to establish a water security cybersecurity task force to beef up current work to implement immediate solutions to prevent one of the U.S.'s most critical services from disruption. Remember, critical infrastructure, like we talked about earlier. Prevalent vulnerabilities common throughout the sector will be considered by the task force, as will methods to adopt industry-wide best practices. It also plans to build upon existing initiatives such as the 2023 Roadmap to Secure and Resilient Water and Wastewater Sector. Why does this matter in general? Well, water especially, right? Sanitization water, but water especially impacts so many things, right? There's water in whatever you're going to drink. You're going to drink water, you're going to drink something else. It's going to have some amount of water in it. So that's important, right? A lot of people just drink water naturally. Water is used to put on plants and do all kinds of things, right? So water is super important for our ability to stay healthy and to live, right? Recent attacks on the Municipal Water Authority of Alquipa, that is quite the location name, as well as a collection of unnamed utilities have prompted a period of heightened awareness from security authorities in recent months. An Iran-backed group was singled out as the culprit for the Alquipa incident, while China's Volt Typhoon, which we did talk about, remember, crew was linked to a string of critical infrastructure intrusions across various sectors, including water and wastewater systems. Wastewater, of course, is sanitization kind of things. So through your toilets in your bathroom and stuff. Drinking water and wastewater systems are a lifeline for communities, which is important, right? But many systems have not adopted important cybersecurity practices to thwart potential cyber attacks, said Reagan. EPA and the National Security Council take these threats very seriously and will continue to partner with state environmental health and homeland security leaders to address the pervasive and challenging risk of cyber attacks on water systems. So again, critical infrastructure, especially things like water, sanitization, wastewater, right? These are all important things because if you go to the bathroom and you don't have a wastewater system, right, you either can't get rid of it or it just goes underneath all of your houses on your streets and your neighborhood and your block and everything. And then eventually that starts overflowing, backing up into houses, right? Like there are so many really bad things that can happen with this stuff. Water, obviously drinking water. If you can't drink water, that's a bad time, right? Like that's going to impact a lot of other things. All right, here. Next article. Microsoft Threat Intelligence unveils targets and innovative tactics amidst tax season. This is pretty interesting, right? Tax season's coming up. Our new Microsoft Threat Intelligence tax season report outlines some of the various techniques that threat actors use to craft their campaigns and mislead taxpayers into revealing sensitive information, making payments to fake services, or installing malicious payloads. Microsoft Threat Intelligence tax season report also shows how threat actors impersonate tax payment processors in phishing emails, what cyber criminals are looking for, and who they are targeting, how they can get your data, and most importantly, how you and your organization can stay safe. Although everyone is susceptible to tax season phishing, we've noted that certain groups of people are more vulnerable than others. Prime targets include individuals who may be less informed about government tax procedures and methods, green card holders, and small business owners, new taxpayers under the age of 25, and older taxpayers over 60. At the end of January 2024, Microsoft Threat Intelligence observed a campaign using lures masquerading as tax-related documents provided by employers. The phishing email contained an HTML attachment that directed the user to a fake landing page. This page hosted malicious executables, and once the target clicked on the download documents prompt, malware was installed on their computer. And here's a screenshot of what that looks like. The malicious executable file dropped on the target's machine had information stealer capabilities. Once in the environment, it attempted to collect information, including login credentials. So why does this matter overall? Well, think about that, right? There's a lot of implications with stealing tax data. For one, to do your taxes, you have to have your social security number or some critical information about you, so that can be used for other things, not just tax refunds or stealing tax data, right? But it could also be used to steal your tax return. Now, there's been some scenarios about this before in the past, so I'm not going to dive deep into those, but if you're curious, definitely research that, because that has been an issue with the IRS making tax returns easily accessible or easy to get to file so you can get your checks. People have stolen tax returns. It happens all the time, right? It's a serious thing for sure. But just in general, people are susceptible to this kind of attack because people want to file their tax returns. They're excited to file their tax returns, get that tax return paycheck, right? Get the, whatever it is, a couple $1,000s or something, get that money back, right? If you have to pay your taxes, well, maybe that's not as fun, right? Maybe you owe a little bit more. You didn't take enough out throughout the year. But, taxes in general, that is one of those things that we all have to do. It's one of those things where we could all fall victim if we're not careful and we're just in such a rush to go get our taxes done. But it's nice to see that Microsoft is looking at this with their threat intelligence. And, just in general, this is one of those things where we have to continue to educate people, make sure that people aren't falling for these scams, especially your employees, right? If you're working for a company and you're in charge of distributing the tax information or the W-2s or anything like that, that's something that you have to help your employees with. Make sure that they are aware of scams so that they get their tax return and they don't get scammed in the process of trying to do that or download malware just because they see, this good looking tax return email or whatever, right? So really, really dangerous for anybody, really, not just employees, but yeah, good article for sure. All right, so that is going to wrap up the articles and the episode for today for Cyber Threat Intel. Remember to check out the description because there is a link to cyberthreatintel.com. That's where we put all the episodes up in audio format. There's also a link to the live stream and 2 videos for Cyber Threat Intel. If you just want to look at them directly, go to the John Good Cyber YouTube channel. But also on Cyber Threat Intel, we do have the article feed. So if you're interested in reading more about these articles that we covered today, if you want to see other articles that are on there as well, because it's not just these articles, I put a whole bunch in there that are really interesting to read, but we just obviously can't get to them all because there's a lot. But check that out as well. Also, make sure to check out Cyber Training Pro if you need training, career services, career coaching, resume feedback, services like that. And with that being said, and also too, if you're a company and you're looking to sponsor content, make sure to check out the description because there is more information about that as well. And I will hang around for a few minutes more after the stream. So we'll end the episode here. And if you just hang out for a little bit longer, we will go ahead and answer any questions that you might have. So with that being said, though, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the Cyber Threat Intel episode for today, and I'll see you in the next one. All right. Back here. Looks like we have some people still on the stream and hanging around. I'm not sure if you have any questions. Just want to give you a couple minutes. So if you do have some questions that we can answer, this is really kind of just an opportunity to hang out a little bit more beyond the show. And because obviously during the show, we don't get a lot of time to answer questions. It's kind of rapid fire trying to get through the content. But, the idea is to do these typically with the episodes. And then, of course, right at the beginning, when we're just starting out and we're kind of hanging out for a few minutes, that's a good time to ask questions too. But you can always obviously ask questions in the comments after the fact too. So if you're watching the replay, or if you think about a question later, maybe related to this episode or just in general, and you want to ask the question, you can do that too. Nice thing with this is that we do have some nice chill music. So again, it's a good opportunity to just kind of hang out and yeah, just hang out with everybody and see if there's anything else that we need to talk about. I'm interested to hear what people think about this this kind of chill music. Definitely making the playlist bigger. There's more audio to put in there. I've been doing a lot of things, honestly, with a lot of the overlays and stuff. And I have all these different sound effects and stuff that I've been putting on. So
Yes.
it's pretty cool. We also have different emojis and different stuff that I can drop. So whenever I tell a good joke, you can laugh and we can drop the emojis, do all the good stuff, right? But yeah, I've definitely been looking at other ways to up the value, right? Up the value of the content that I'm putting out, put more stream content out there for you. All right. Well, looks like we don't have too many questions or anything going on today. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up for today. And I will see you next time. See you later.